If Mamdani pulls off a hat trick, is a new era in Democratic Party politics.
It's not a great day if you have a brain, understand basic economics, or don't want to see America as we know it destroyed. Hey guys, welcome back to the show. We're going to tackle some big election results that came out last night that are making waves because they kind of represent the Zohran Mamdani-ification of the Democratic Party and kind of stunned everybody, though I guess they're not really surprising given the trajectory of our politics these days, but they are kind of horrifying because we're seeing these extreme far left Democratic Socialists of America candidates rise and win Democratic primaries, and then because it's deep blue districts, they're almost certainly going to become members of Congress. Here's the headline from the Wall Street Journal. 3 Mamdani-backed candidates win Democratic primaries in New York. Brad Lander, Claire Valdez, and Daria Liza Avila Chevalier, sorry for mispronouncing that potentially, notch victories over the Democratic establishment. Now, this is sending shockwaves throughout the media class because it really does represent kind of a changing of the guard in Democratic politics. Here is Van Jones stressing the significance of this on CNN.
Well, New York City matters because the two most exciting left-wing candidates are here, AOC and Mamdani, but also this is the stronghold for the establishment, Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries. This is a battle between the establishment and this insurgency, and the roof is collapsing on the Democratic Party establishment tonight. If Mamdani gets a hat trick, 3 out of 3, this is a new era for the Democratic Party, and you can't write off New York City because this is the place where both it's the power center for the establishment and the insurgency, and they're going head to head tonight. And right now, this is no longer a movement. This is a movement and a machine at the same time. There's just no way to sugarcoat this. If Mamdani pulls off a hat trick, is a new era in Democratic Party politics.
Well, and if you're a moderate Democrat who's on the election, who's on the ballot this November, Van, I mean, they're all going to get asked about the positions that we're hearing from these other fellow Democrats.
Yes, they most certainly are, as they frankly should be, because these positions are insane, that some of the things that these people believe. I mean, these are all the Hassan Piker-esque candidates, right? In fact, the Van Jones mentioned AOC and Bernie Sanders as kind of the leftmost flank of the Democratic Party. These people are significantly to the left of them in many ways, or at least to the left of them historically, the positions that they took. They totally reject any form of capitalism. So we're not talking about liberals who want to tax and spend and have a little bit more welfare programs or more generous benefits. Here, they reject the idea of private enterprise, of profit, of business, and really do want to see government collective control over the economy, despite that essentially working never. And it's not even just that, because obviously, we've seen a rise in support for socialism, but some of their positions about societal enforcement, whether it's police, whether it's immigration, are just so out of touch and so extreme that it is something even most people who do not agree with the conservative position would be horrified by. So they basically, many of these candidates do not believe in immigration enforcement as it exists, right? They want to abolish ICE. They're not just saying, oh, ICE has gone too far, ICE is violating people's rights, or maybe we shouldn't deport everyone, we should have some exceptions or let some people stay in some circumstances, or oh, we need due process. All those kinds of reasonable concerns and pushback you've heard from people, they're like, no, abolish ICE entirely. Don't deport people, even and murderers and criminals who are in the country. And the actual party platform is pretty extreme on that front and suggests that anybody from across the world should be allowed to come. Complete open borders is the official Democratic Socialists of America position that these candidates are all affiliated with. And the scary thing here, again, is that these candidates are pretty much all guaranteed to win because they're deep blue districts. So it's pretty unlikely that a Republican candidate could actually win any of those races. Plus, the momentum's going to be behind the Democrats anyway. So you're going to have these people become members of Congress, and they might be outliers, right? They might not represent the median Democratic member of Congress, but we already have so many extreme voices, and they're going to be even more added to the chorus. And it's like we are just heading off a cliff if you care about normalcy or sanity or any semblance of common sense or pragmatism in politics, they're sprinting away from it, at least in these districts. And it's Zohran Mamdani is kind of the moving force behind a lot of this energy. He's an incredibly charismatic guy, but again, just breathtakingly radical in his own blatantly communist past, his own far, far left social justice positions that he's taken over and over again. And he's kind of rhetorically moderated a little bit, but he's still doing a lot of very controversial things as the mayor of New York City, and is very out of step with the American population. Of course, he's the mayor of a deep blue city. That doesn't require him to be in touch with the whole country. But these national level politicians will be judged on a national scale and found wanting, I suspect. But this does seem to be where the motion is at in the Democratic Party. And that's kind of scary if you want us to have, any sort of sane counterbalance to the two parties. Here is CNN breaking down the polling on how the DSA, with all its radical, extremist, frankly anti-American, like very foundationally hateful of America and Western civilization, ideology and belief and movement, how it's actually becoming much more popular among Democratic voters than the actual typical Democratic establishment class, which I'm certainly not a fan of, but at least they don't openly say they want to end Western civilization as we know it, or abolish police and prisons and all borders and whatever pie-in-the-sky nonsense. Here's CNN breaking down that polling.
Well, among Democrats themselves, the Democratic Socialists of America have a higher net favor rating than the Democratic Party does, at least those who are members of Congress. I mean, just take a look here. Dem Socialists of America, plus 17 points. Democrats in Congress, plus 4 points. No wonder that Dem Socialists are getting nominated across the political map in different primaries, because simply put, they're more popular than the Democrats currently in charge.
Okay, I'm just thinking back to when I was sitting here and Zohran Mamdani was sitting there when he was running, and I asked him about capitalism.
Yes.
And he had no problem saying that he had real issues with it. Okay, he wasn't afraid to say it. By the way, he ended up winning. It didn't hurt him. How do Democrats today view socialism compared to capitalism?
There's a reason why it didn't hurt him, and that is simply because this is one of the biggest political changes I've seen during my lifetime. Match up socialism, capitalism among Democrats. You go back 16 years ago, 2010, capitalism and socialism right there, favorable rating, 51%, 50%. Look at it now. Socialism clearly in the lead among Democrats. 66% of them view socialism favorably, just 42% view capitalism favorably. No wonder Mamdani had no problem blasting it.
Which is fascinating, because when you look at races coming up in New York, you've got a big one up in the Bronx. And you've got Zohran Mamdani endorsing a Democratic Socialist. Hakeem Jeffries not going with the more traditional incumbent. So there are two big races involving Democratic Socialists coming up in New York.
So the Democrats are headed off a cliff with this. I mean, first off, the thing that's always bothersome about these polls about socialism versus capitalism and people supporting it is I think a lot of these people don't actually know what these terms mean, and they think just, oh, well, capitalism is when greedy companies get all the money, and socialism is when the government helps people, when in fact you're talking about economic systems. You're talking about public versus private. You're talking about the extent to which you have a free market economy versus a state-regulated or controlled or directed or commanded economy. And what's interesting about that as well is oftentimes the people who say they support socialism or think they support socialism actually support or are view very positively like Nordic countries, where, for example, they actually have very, very privatized free market economies, and then they have a hefty tax and redistribution system. And you could debate whether you agree with that or you find it harmful or counterproductive, but they're not like fundamentally command and control socialist economies the way that these DSA candidates, many of them literally do support. They talk about seizing the means of production and running them via the government or they like say the people, or democratizing it. It always just so happens to be through a powerful state, a centralized state. And I'll say all of this, like, obviously I don't view the mainstream Democratic Party particularly favorably, but the idea that you could have the DSA, which is explicitly anti-American, anti-Western civilization, radical beyond belief, increasingly viewed positively by Democratic voters, is just, I don't know what to say about it other than that it is incredibly disturbing. And I think Zohran Mamdani has a lot to do with it. I think Hassan Piker and his ilk, and the very friendly and softball media coverage that these figures often get. All of them have a lot to do with it. And I do think these candidates or these ideologues and these activists do tap in to a real sentiment among voters where they feel left behind, and then they're given very convenient scapegoats by these candidates that often are not really borne out in reality. And the other thing is about these candidates, I do have some sympathy for people who fall prey to it because they just totally disregard basic economics or like inconvenient realities or trade-offs. Like, for example, the DSA wants universal rent control, which sounds great, right? Like everybody wants housing to be more affordable. So why can't the government just mandate that it be cheaper? Now, of course, like almost every economist, even ultra progressives, will be like, wait, this policy really doesn't work. It's really harmful. It's really counterproductive. There's just avalanches of empirical data against this. They just aren't bothered with it. They just don't care. They just make bold promises about, we're going to give you all this free stuff, all this stuff. We're just going to do it by taxing the billionaires. The math doesn't actually have to add up or math or anything. And all these policies are going to be great. You're going to get this. You're going to get this. I mean, I could see why that's alluring to people, but it's a false bill of goods, right? They're snake oil salesmen. And I get that it could potentially work to be elected to Congress. But I'll just say this, because then you'll just be, one dissident member shouting into the wind and holding press conferences demanding that we abolish ICE or that we, give everyone free rainbows and unicorns and just we'll tax Elon Musk to pay for it, even though the math, once again, does not math. But actually governing a society under some of the things these people believe would be genuinely catastrophic. And so I'm pretty disturbed by the ongoing Zohran Mamdani-ification of the Democratic Party. And I actually think it's a gift to Republicans and MAGA who are really struggling right now with the public because they're in power and things are not going well. People don't appreciate the cost of living, the war, all the things, the constant chaos and egomania and narcissism and gaslighting from the president, the insane tweets, the toxic rhetoric, all of this. People aren't happy with this, but like literally all Democrats have to do is offer a semi-normal alternative and they win huge. But they refuse to do that, at least in some races, right? With this swing in momentum in favor of the DSA. I want to read you this tweet I saw that I found funny. Every time I'm convinced Republicans are Democrats decide to triple down on the most alienating fringe psycho imaginable. And then they attach the two of these all three of these Mamdani-backed radical leftist candidates. And it really is true. My background is I'm more independent, more moderate now, but my background is in conservative media, right? And I was for a long time more Republican leaning. And they're thrilled by these elections because this gives them new boogeymen. But they're not actually boogeymen. They're real men and women who now represent or are going to represent the Democratic Party in Congress. And it's a gift to Republicans. And once again, things are absolutely going off the rails. But I guess that's just a day that ends in Y in American politics. You guys let me know what you think in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed if you aren't yet. Do hit the like button before you go. And we'll be back with more real soon.